Behind me, I have two pulley towers. That one's plate loaded, that one's got a weight stack. I want to explore the differences so you can see for yourself if it's worth paying the premium for a weight stack. So let's get into it. So I have another video on my channel breaking down the pulley towers more in depth, more about the setup. Go check that one out if you want to learn more about the technical details of these pulley towers. I have one plate loaded tower here. I had two and I decided to upgrade one of them to a weight stack so I can do a one-to-one comparison between the two. On my last video, I got a comment from someone saying that it seems like I'm very positive about Bells of Steel when I review their equipment and asking why that is. As someone who has a home gym, you tend to become very brand loyal. You find a company you really like, they make quality equipment, you tend to stick with that. And in general, it's a good idea to do that when you're in that ecosystem. The pieces are compatible. If you build out a rack, you can get attachments and other pieces of equipment that are all compatible. So it makes a lot of sense to stay within a certain company. But that being said, I have a rack that's from Titan. I have a barbell that's from Valor. I have a bench from Rep. So I don't have only Bells of Steel stuff, I just really like the company. And because I like the company and because I do these review videos, I did sign up as an affiliate. And that doesn't mean anything. It's not like I have an association with Bells of Steel. I don't work for them. It's just so when I put a link down below, if you shop through that link, it doesn't cost you anything, but I get a little something, so it helps me be able to produce content for free. But the reason I'm generally positive is because this is the only equipment I have. Behind me is my home gym. That's all my equipment. When you see guys like Coop reviewing equipment on YouTube, they have a ton of different pieces to compare. So if he's reviewing a pulley tower, he can compare it to 4 different companies' pulley towers and break it down technically to figure out the pros and the cons. For me, these are the only pulley towers I know. They're the only ones I use. So yeah, I'm going to be positive because I knew I wanted a pulley tower, so I bought a pulley tower. Are they the best? I don't know. I have nothing to compare it to, but I can be honest and break down the pros and the cons. So let's do that. Now, something very important off the bat, if you have a plate loaded tower, you can't just upgrade to a weight stack. In other words, you can't just buy the weight stack and throw it on. The pieces are designed differently. They have to be to accommodate the weight stack. So the design is a little bit different. You're not just going to be able to throw these weight plates on it. You will have to buy a completely new unit. If you like doing cable exercises, a plate loaded cable tower is a great investment. 1, it's cheap. 2, you already have the weights. Assuming you have enough weight plates, you already have everything you need for the pulley tower. 3, it doesn't really feel that different from a commercial quality machine. Yes, there are differences in the pulleys, and what I actually did was I upgraded the plastic wheels to aluminum wheels. Luckily, Bells of Steel sells a set of aluminum wheels, so you can upgrade. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit more, but once I upgraded to the aluminum wheels, it became so smooth. And to put it into perspective, before I got the weight stack, I had my 2 pulley towers. One of them had the aluminum wheels, one of them had the plastic wheels, and I probably did about 90% of my exercises on the one with the aluminum wheels. It makes it so smooth. It feels commercial quality. Yes, there's a slight difference. I think anything plate loaded versus a weight stack is going to feel a little bit different. And obviously, when you're working on a machine that's a couple $100s versus something in the gym that's thousands of dollars, yeah, it's going to feel a little bit different. But for the most part, I couldn't tell a difference. If you need something cheaper, a plate loaded tower is the way to go, but there are drawbacks. And that was something that I wanted to see doing a head-to-head comparison between the two. The biggest, most obvious downfall of a plate loaded tower is that you literally have to load and unload plates. When you're performing an exercise, you kind of have to guess on the weight you want to start with. When you're using a machine at the gym, you drop a pin in. If it's too light or it's too heavy, you adjust it and you try again. With a plate loaded pulley tower, you have your 2 sleeves on the ends, so you have to add a plate to one side and then the other side. And when you're changing from multiple sets throughout a workout, through multiple exercises, that time can add up. Now, I was using plate loaded pulley towers for well over a year, and while I really did not enjoy the time changing weights, you're able to kind of take advantage because you're resting between sets in most cases. So during that rest, you can change the weights. But the other problem with plates is that they get in the way. So if you have a setup like me, where you have the pulley towers attached to the back of your rack, I like to superset. So I'll do something like bench and then move over to the cables. But when it's plate loaded, you run the risk of these plates hitting into each other. So more often than not, I'm just using a lot of small plates on the pulley tower to make sure that doesn't get in the way. But if you have a barbell racked on your rack, or a lot of racks will have plate holders where you're just keeping the plates there as storage, they're gonna get in the way. And then depending on the exercise you do, having plates is less ideal. For example, I've been doing lat pull downs on my pulley towers. Now this pulley tower specifically, it's not tall enough to do lat pull downs on a bench. I take my leg press attachment, lay that down. I have an extra bench pad that I put over that, and that's essentially my low bench. And then from Home Depot, I grabbed a threaded rod. It's 5/8 of an inch because that's the hole spacing on this pulley tower. And then I got some cheap thigh pads from Amazon, and there you go, there's my setup. But when you have plates, your shins take a beating. You have to use 25-pound plates or less for it to not beat up your legs, because when you use heavier plates, it really gets in the way. So that was something that I was not enjoying with my plate loaded tower. And obviously everyone's not doing lat pull down, so maybe that's not a huge issue, but that's one of the main exercises I do on these towers. So that was less than ideal for me. So let's transition right into it. Let's go right into the weight stack tower, how I feel about it, and if it was worth the upgrade. So going from a direct comparison, when I do lat pull downs on this, I don't have to worry about the weight hitting me because it's a weight stack. It's moving from a fixed location and it's not moving very high. It's not getting in the way of my legs, so I can very comfortably do lat pull downs, which I was super excited about. If you're somebody that wants to go super heavy though, you might be out of luck. So this weight stack goes up to 210 pounds. Every weight plate on here is 10 pounds, goes all the way up to 210. Now for some people, that will be well more than they need. For other people, it might not be heavy enough. So when I was doing my lat pull downs, I was able to do 210. And while that's plenty heavy for me, I could definitely handle more if I wanted to. But there are options out there. I know there's an option for getting a pin that you can load a plate onto, but given the setup of this, the way the cables are designed, I think it'll be very difficult to slide plates on and off it. So I wouldn't recommend that. And if you're wondering about the pull ratio, it's a 2-to-1 ratio, which I honestly didn't really understand. Basically, what that means is when you pull the weight, you're pulling half of whatever's loaded. Whether it's plate loaded or weight stack, it's gonna be half. So if you take one of the sides and pull it, and there's 50 pounds on there, you're pulling 25 pounds. And that might sound like a really crappy thing because on a 210-pound tower, you're looking at 100 pounds of resistance. But that's only because there's 2 pulleys on here. So each side is 100 pounds. A very simple solution though is just clipping them together and you have a 1-to-1 ratio. So going back to the lat pull down example, when I'm pulling 210 pounds, I'm actually pulling 210 pounds because I'm taking both of the carabiners, hooking them onto one slightly larger carabiner, and then onto my attachment. So when I'm pulling them both together and I'm getting the true weight. From a practicality standpoint, the weight stack is great, but is it worth the upgrade? You're basically paying for convenience. If you work out the same way I do, you love supersetting and cutting your rest time. So when I'm doing the cables, when I have to take the time to load these plates, it's a pain in the ass. Being able to easily just take the pin and switch from weight to weight has changed my workouts completely. I've been using the weight stack now for 2 weeks. My workouts have gotten significantly better that I cannot quantify it. I love doing drop sets more than anything. It's very hard to do with the plate loaded tower. If you have enough 10 and 5-pound weights, yeah, you could do it. Not the most convenient, but it can be done. With the weight stack, I've been doing so many drop sets. You just start with the heavy set, drop it by 10 or 20 pounds, and continue and go all the way up the weight stack. Now having tried the weight stack, I don't think I could go back. And this might be a unique situation for me, but I use lever arms all the time. A lot of people don't like lever arms. I think that's crazy because they are so versatile and they do so much. Maybe it's because I love doing machines in the gym, but you could pretty much mimic any machine you want with lever arms. And I mean, I've beaten this point into the ground. I have a couple videos about lever arms, so feel free to go to my channel and check those out. But the moral of the story is that with these towers, they are designed to take attachments. The hole spacing, the hole sizing, it's meant to take the same attachments that the racks take. So you can use the bells of steel attachments right on these, and it basically becomes its own rack. So I've been using the bells of steel lever arms on these pulleys, and one of my favorite hacks that I've ever figured out is that you can attach a handle to the pulleys and hook it around the lever arm. And what that does is it allows you to use the pulleys as your weight instead of loading plates onto the lever arms. Now, yes, that might sound really unnecessary, and maybe it is, but there's two reasons I like it. One is that it makes it feel a lot more like a machine. When you load plates onto a lever arm, you're just kind of working against gravity. When you're doing chest press, it doesn't feel that good when it's just plates loaded on, and in those cases, I totally understand why people don't love lever arms. But when you hook the handle around it and it's pulling to the pulleys behind you, you're getting full resistance all the way through, and it actually feels like a machine. So being able to use that hack with a weight stack now makes it truly like any machine in the gym. You can do a set, reach behind you, change the weight, and you're off to the races. If I'm doing an exercise, I want to be able to do it pretty quickly. I don't want to rest a ton. That's just me personally. With the weight stack, I can add 20 pounds in 1 second. So I'm going to be doing a ton of different lever arm exercises, and having it hooked up to the weight stack makes it a machine, and it saves so much time. So is a weight stack worth it? I mean, it's up to you. There's a pretty substantial price difference. If we look on the Bells of Steel website, you can see that the plate loaded tower is much more affordable than a weight stack. And that's going to be universal between every company. The prices are going to vary, but a plate loaded tower is going to be significantly cheaper. So if you want a budget option, a plate loaded tower is great, assuming that you already have the plates. But then ultimately, you just have to figure out if the convenience of having a weight stack is worth paying the premium. I'm very cheap. I'm not proud of that, but I'm very cheap. So when I started building my home gym, I started very small. This has been a very slow build, and I very gradually have upgraded as I've felt necessary. So I started with plate loaded towers because they're a lot cheaper, and then I ultimately decided that I wanted to go for a weight stack. I don't like playing the game of breaking down how much you're spending versus going to a gym. I think that's a really foolish exercise to do. I know many people do it, and that's how they justify home gym purchases. They figure out how much they would spend in gas, the time, the commute, how much their gym membership is, break that down by day, and then do the math on the equipment they're buying. I think that's really silly because, like, if I'm going out to eat and I want a nice meal, I don't break down the ingredients and figure out, well, if I go to the store and I buy this, it would be cheaper. So no, it's a good experience. You're going out for one reason or another. Maybe you're celebrating, whatever, and maybe you're building a great memory that you can't put a price on. It's a memory that might last a lifetime versus if you make it at home, you're going to forget it in a week. So, how do you quantify that? I feel the same way about my home gym. Like, this brings me so much joy, and I'm using it every day that I will happily pay a premium. Yes, of course I would save money if I was going to a gym, but that doesn't make it not worth it to me. So I don't like doing that exercise, but hey, I mean, to each their own. If you want to break it down that way and figure out if it's worth it, sure. And I can only speak from my experience. So if you're someone who works out in a similar fashion as I do, if you like doing supersets, drop sets, if you like going from machine to machine with very little rest, that having a weight stack is going to be really beneficial. Obviously, that assumes that you do cables and machines in the gym. If you want that option to do that stuff at home, between having the weight stack, adding the lever arms to this pulley tower, I mean, there is not an exercise that I feel I can't do. And now in hindsight, I should have done an unboxing and assembly so you guys could see. Just know that it was actually pretty easy. The instructions that come with these pulley towers, both of them, they're terrible. But Bells of Steel does have videos online that you can follow along with, made it very easy. I have zero technical skills. I can't fix anything around the house. I'm horrible at that stuff. and I was able to put both of these together. You may notice in some of these clips that one of them is actually assembled a little bit incorrectly, and the little popper thing, I don't even know what it's called, is upside down on one of my towers. Oops. But it still works, so I don't worry about it too much. And the last thing you should note just about pulleys in general is that they take a little bit of time to loosen up. So right out of the box, I assembled it and I started using it, and honestly, I did not think that I was gonna like this very much, and it was kind of a bummer because it felt like my plate loaded tower was so much smoother. I've been using the plate loaded tower for a year. It smooths out over time, but definitely check out Super Lube for all your lube needs. I got it. I think I got this on Amazon. I don't even remember at this point. It's multi-purpose synthetic grease. You're going to want to put that on your cables, and it's going to make them significantly smoother. It's going to last a lot longer. There you go. It's really funny sounding, but there. It's just like, it's gunk. You just kind of and throw it on the cables. It will help. It'll make them nice and smooth. It's been a couple weeks that I've been using this every day, and I love it. So yes, to me, it is totally worth it. I'm looking forward to getting a second one. I'm gonna swap out my plate loaded tower for another weight stack, and I'll have 2 weight stacks. I'm most excited to do lever arm work and be able to just attach those to the handles and then be able to use the weight stack for quick change. But the drop sets, the convenience, I really love it. It's definitely for me. It's not going to be for everybody. So if you're someone that isn't using a lot of cables, isn't into accessory work, I would not recommend investing in a weight stack because you're probably not going to get good use out of it. But for everyone else that likes doing accessory work, just the convenience alone, I think is worth the premium. But if you can't afford it or you don't want to afford it, go with a plate loaded tower because you can always upgrade. The great thing about home gym equipment is that it holds its value pretty well. So you could hop on Marketplace or Craigslist, even though it's a little bit sketchier, and you can sell your equipment when you want to upgrade to a new piece and get most of your money back in a lot of cases. If you have specific questions, let me know. I'll do my best to answer as many comments as I can. Boop. End it on a boop.